everyone, it's me, Ryan Turford. I'm in my house, and you're listening to the most PlayStation-rific podcast on the internet. It's the PlayStation Drive. I'm on a Discord call with my friend Matt Sawinski, and on our journey today, oh my god, there's an Uncharted movie trailer, and God of War is coming to PC, and all the things are happening in February 2022, so jump on into the PlayStation Drive. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-dow.
Oh, indeed, my good friend Ryan. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you, good sir, on this, what looks like to be a very gloomy kind of rainy day? At least here in London, anyways. I don't know if it is like that in Toronto.
It is very much like that down here as well. It is not too pleasant, but we're going to have fun with it anyway because, I already had my morning made. The Tom Holland's beautiful face has graced my screen this morning, and I'm very, very, very happy about it, is what I'll say.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that because we got lots of feedback about that. But of course, friends at home, if you like what we do, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways you can do that. Number one, you can subscribe to us on your podcast feed of choice. We're on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all the things. So check us out on your podcast platform of choice. Also, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it right here on the show. Second, if you want to see our beautiful faces every single week, because we put up a video version of the show every single Friday morning over on youtube.com/YouMeCapri. Check it out there, subscribe, like the video, share with all your friends, all that stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. Last but not least, if you want exclusive content as well as early access to this and all of our shows, patreon.com/YouMeCapri is how you go do that. Throw a little tip jar and you can get some content. It should be pretty sweet because we might have something special coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you're going to have to check out the Patreon for more info. Also, 2 new things to the docket that we usually don't talk about. One thing, Matt, by the time people are watching this, we will have seen each other in person for the first time because we are heading to Toronto, Ontario, Canada this weekend for Fan Expo. So if you're listening to this on Friday or Saturday and you want to hang out with us in person, hit me up at Ryan Turford on Twitter or on Discord, or Sean at Sean Capri on Discord or Twitter, and we will make sure to hang out because we're going to be hanging out in person at Fan Expo, but also just around Toronto. So definitely hit us up and let us know you want to hang out, and we'll make time to hang out. Last but not least, it's about time we start promoting this because it's in 2 weeks, but Extra Life is coming up. So we have some live streams and coolness happening for Extra Life this year. Of course, Sean is going to be in Rome, New York on the first weekend of November on game day. So November 6th through 7th, Sean will be broadcasting from the Phoenix Overdrive headquarters in Rome, New York, doing Extra Life there. So if you want to donate to either Sean or myself, our Extra Life donation links are in the description as well. I'm going to be doing a live stream on the Wednesday of that week, basically doing my 24-hour live stream on Wednesday the 3rd. So I'm going to be doing 2 12-hour streams because I'm an old man. I'm not going to do the 24 hours straight, but I'll be parsing it out over 2 days. So you can look for that on that week as well. Matt, are you guys doing anything for Extra Life over at Burnout Brighter? I can't remember. I don't think we've ever talked about it.
We haven't really settled on anything as of yet. I'm not sure 100% yet. We're kind of a little bit busy over the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. I'll let you know if we do.
Makes sense. So definitely, again, if you want to donate to either, I know Sean's raising money for the Stollery charity over in Alberta, and then I'm raising money for sick kids. So again, the donation links are in the description as well. Sean's also got some cool contests over on his page as well, so you're going to want to make sure to check that out if you want to win some free stuff and have some money go to a good cause. All right, without further ado, because we got to get into the show because we got lots to talk about. Let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in. It's time for the playlist because first of all, we can probably pretty quickly zoom through the games we've been playing because we've talked about them before. Matt, I'm going to start with you. What'd you play this week?
I have been completely hooked on Lost Judgment. It continues to be fantastic. They've added some almost Persona-like elements with their school setting because the big focus of Lost Judgment is centered around a lot of bullying that's going on in a high school. And obviously everything that spirals out around that, it's a lot more complicated than that. But there's actually different school clubs you can go and mentor them, and some side quests are kind of locked behind getting closer with some of the clubs. So they have this kind of almost personality kind of leadership stuff. That's really, really cool. The story continues to be awesome. They're so good at doing hey, I know this chapter is ending, but you're going to want to start the next one right away. And of course, every time I'm okay, I'm in. And being back in Yokohama, which was the setting of Yakuza 7, like Yakuza Like a Dragon, I'm just like, where's the pharmacy? And I can run there now without even thinking about it anymore, just because like I love how they do that. And I know some people might have an issue with the way that they kind of recycle their maps, but I absolutely love it, because every time I come back to a Yakuza game, whether it's Kamurocho or now Yokohama, it's like, I know where I'm going. I know exactly where that thing is. And of course they change things and flesh things out in different ways, depending on the entry. But like, it's like a bit of a homecoming for me. It's coming back and being like, I know these streets. Well, this is where this happened. This is what happened.
It's a real life location that exists in real life. Like, it's not like the map in Yokohama, if you go to Japan right now, is changing all the time. So like, that makes sense. Like, why it wouldn't change. Like, because I mean, it's not like they're not making like visual improvements over the course of these games. Like, even if the map's
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense if you really think about, where they're basing the game.
Exactly. So like, it's just like, after spending a bunch of games with, Kamurocho and now Yokohama, it's just like, I don't know. Like I said, it feels like a bit like a homecoming. It's like, it's a warm, fuzzy feeling coming back and being like, I know where all this is. I know where to go for this. So I'm still loving it. I'm probably about halfway through the game now, and I'm having an absolute blast with it. What about you, Ryan? What have you been playing?
So I actually played, believe it or not, I played a lot of Wii U this week, but I'm not going to talk about that on this show. But I played NHL 22 this week. Now, I talked about it on last week's show because I played kind of the EA Access free trial, but then our friends over at Xbox Canada actually ended up giving us codes for it. So I ended up actually getting a code for it. So I've been playing the game a lot more. I played a few games as, of course, my Calgary Flames, but also I played some games as the Seattle Kraken, who are fine. But I've been enjoying my time with NHL. Again, it's more hockey. So I don't really need to tell you more about that. Again, if you like the NHL games, this is definitely the prettiest one, and I think it's definitely worth playing. And then just diving into so much more of the Caligula Effect 2, I'm near the end, so I'm not going to get a chance to play it this weekend, but I imagine by like this time next week, I should be ready to kind of put my review out there for it and kind of my final thoughts. But overall, again, I'm still really enjoying that game. It's still really awesome. And I'm really having a good time with it. So I'm excited to talk about in full. Like I said, I'm going to save that for next week because that's when I'm going to do the full review for it. So stay tuned for my full thoughts on it next week, because we're slamming the brakes on this conversation, Matt. It's time for some breaking news because we got to get into this because we got some stuff to discuss. So Sony this morning, out of nowhere, kind of surprises, even though there was some footage that leaked last night about this, but they revealed a new trailer for the Uncharted film, as well as its release date, because we actually didn't know when the movie was coming out. We just knew 2022 before, but we finally have a release date for it. It will launch on February 18th, exclusively in theaters. And we got a lot of questions about this. So, Matt, hold your thoughts for just a second. Let's let some of our friends into the car with us. We're going to start with Seamus McIsaac at Famous Seamus, who asks, what are your thoughts on the Uncharted movie trailer? And then Court Lalonde at Court Lalonde asks, does the Uncharted trailer move the needle for you? Also, how excited are you for tomorrow to become best friends with me? Because we're actually going to be meeting Court Lalonde in person, which is going to be awesome. And then I've got this paragraph from TPR. I should probably read it before we get into things back, because we're going to touch on some of these points. TPR on Discord says, Ryan, Matt, first time asking questions here, but hey, I'm quite dissatisfied with this new Uncharted trailer. I think the castings for Nathan and Sully are too young, unless the film was centered around Nathan's formative years between the time between Uncharted 3 and 4 flashbacks and the start of Uncharted 1. But we obviously see the Uncharted 3 cargo plane sequence, so the timeline seems either compressed or thrown out the window. I would have vastly preferred the short film cast with Nathan Fillion's Uncharted brought. But maybe I'm too critical, and they picked Tom Holland / Mark Wahlberg to foster an Uncharted movie saga. What do you guys think about this? So, Matt, I know you've got some raw thoughts about this, so hit me with your thoughts about the trailer.
You know what? All right, in all honesty, I think it's fine. I just don't think it's Uncharted. Like, they could have slapped whatever other, action movie name onto it, and it wouldn't have really changed what the movie is. I actually do like Holland as a younger Nathan Drake, because I think that was kind of how they've been billing it, was that this is him when he's younger. This is kind of the story of how him and Sully met. So it is, I think, TPR kind of nails it, where it is kind of like an earlier, set timeline. Obviously, I never really expected them to follow the games, and I don't really want them to do that. Just because for me, we already have the games, we have those stories. And like, I feel like The Last of Us, which what they're doing with the TV series fits itself much better as okay, this was the story, let's kind of follow it along loosely. Uncharted, I think they don't really need to follow the same story. There's enough of like the Indiana Jones, treasure hunting type stories that they don't really have to follow the game. So I'm not really as bothered by the fact that there seem to be kind of combining a bunch of elements across all of the Uncharted games. Like TPR mentioned, the plane sequence, bringing Sam in, who we only met in the 4th game. I just don't. I think that there's something missing here. I don't like Mark Wahlberg as Sully.
Yep.
At all. I just don't think he fits the mold whatsoever. I think Tom Holland is at least part of the way there, and I think you can kind of grow into that Nathan Drake role if this film is successful and they continue doing more. I don't really have a problem with Holland. Mark, I have no clue what he's doing there. I'm surprised he wasn't dropped already from the time that he was, supposed to be Nathan Drake. But to me, this just kind of seems to be missing the heart of what Uncharted is, which for me, that series is all about the characters, their interactions, and the heart of those relationships. I'm not really one that like, oh my God, Uncharted has the best stories in gaming. I don't really think that. They're quite formulaic and they're quite simple start to finish. There's nothing that's really going to blow you away. They're fun and they're entertaining. So story-wise, I think if the movie kind of hits those same beats, I think that's fine. But what's missing for me from the trailer is the kind of heart of it. And I think that's kind of hard to sell in the trailer. So personally, it's kind of exactly where I thought it was going to be. Based on what we knew about the movie. I think what's really going to move the needle for me, like Court kind of mentioned, is seeing how the next few trailers kind of come together. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about it. I'm trying not to be too negative about it because I do think that there's potential there regardless. I don't think it's ever going to live up to what the games are, right. But I think there's some sort of potential there for it to be its own Uncharted style thing. But what do you think, Ryan? Where are you at with this?
Yeah, honestly, you summed up a lot of the points I was going to bring up, especially with the tone in particular just didn't really feel like, Uncharted's tone. But at the same time, like when you think about the Uncharted games, they're really just meant to be like popcorn flicks that you just happen to play as like an 8-hour experience. And I mean, in a way, like that experience shouldn't really work over the length of time that those games run, but it just really does. Like the Naughty Dog really just nails, the pacing of those games. And again, to your point, I'm very glad that they didn't follow the games to a T because the movie kind of needs to be its own thing. And then it wouldn't be as good if it followed the game because you'd run into the issue of constantly comparing all the events in the movie to everything that happens in the game, and then it not being as fleshed out because it's a 2-hour movie versus an 8-hour game for just one of the games in particular, regardless of which one you pick. So that's the type of thing though that comes back whenever we have a topic about a video game based movie, where I always think always that video games always make better TV shows than movies. That's one of the reasons why when they announced The Last of Us TV series, that's why I was so much more excited about that than the prospect of an Uncharted movie, because that they're going to be able to flesh out all the events that happen in the game. And even if they don't follow the game completely and kind of go their own path, I'm totally cool with that because the pace will feel closer to my experience playing the game versus, watching a 2-hour movie of, Mark Wahlberg and, what's his face?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just running around, doing stupid stuff. So, especially too with the music also was kind of a weird choice. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with AC/DC, but like only hearing the little dulcet tones of the Uncharted theme at the very beginning and then not hearing it throughout the trailer, I think kind of threw off the vibe of it a little bit too. But just like you, I want to come in with an open mind. I mean, I want this to be good. I don't want this to be, another bad, like another Hitman video game movie or Blood Rain or literally anything made by UVA Bowl. I feel like they're taking the right approach anyways with Tom Holland being a younger actor, because I think they wanted to go that route just in case this is a big hit and they want to turn it into, 3 or 4 movies. They need to pick a younger actor to make sure that they can, continue to have him stay in the role forever. I think that's kind of the idea behind that. But come on, the biggest crime here is just Mark Wahlberg not growing a mustache because he's Sully. Like, come on, man. Like, even in the flashbacks, Sully has the mustache. Like, that's too much.
I'm telling you, they're going to be so cheeky about it, and that's going to happen either right at the end of the movie or in like a post-credit scene. He's going to be like, "Oh, look at my mustache." Or I saw this thing, I can't remember if it was on Twitter or on Reddit, that like perfectly said like Or what they're going to do is one of those, like, he's going to wear like a fake mustache and he's going to be like, how does this look? And Tom Holland's going to be like, no, I don't think you should do that. They're going to be cheeky about the mustache. I feel it in my bones.
He's also not wearing enough Hawaiian t-shirts or smoking enough cigars as well to be silly. So yeah, that's why, like, I think his character in particular feels the most out of place. Whereas Tom Holland, I can believe him as a younger Nathan Drake. Like from the trailer, he looks the part. He certainly acts the part. So I definitely think it'll fit. But again, it's kind of weird because we already know from the flashbacks and how they met, like how Sully and Nathan met, and it's completely different from what we even saw in the trailer here. Because you see how they meet in the trailer here, and it's completely different and weird. But either way, I'm excited to actually see it. Although I love the timing for this, Matt, because again, you wanted more stuff in the February time window, right?
I did.
Video game related stuff. So February 18th, exclusively in theaters. I mean, for this, I might just wait until it comes to streaming services first before I watch this. I'm probably not rushing out to the theaters to go see this, but I am cautiously optimistic that this might not be terrible. So I'm excited to see what they do with it.
I did like what we saw. If that is Chloe, I think she, like, the actress playing her looks like she's going to fit the bill. Like, there are parts of it that do seem to be, it's just weird because there's parts of it that do seem to be following the games and parts of it that are very much not. Like you mentioned, Marky Mark being the most glaring issue with all this. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. There were parts of what, like, the way that Tom was moving and the way that he was acting that very much did feel Nathan Drake. Like, even when there's a scene where he stands up coming out of the water, like, I felt like the way that he was standing looked very Nathan Drake. But then there were, I don't know, that kind of charisma maybe didn't come across. But I don't know. Like you said, I'm very curious to see how this is going to shake out. And, like, the reviews will be, I think, for me, the selling point, whether I do go out to theaters right away to see this or not. I just want to see. I'm so morbidly curious at this point.
And all I'm going to say, to the point where to kind of combat some of the comments that, this doesn't look enough like Uncharted. Well, I will say, watching trailers for the Mortal Kombat movie, the one that just came out last year, the trailers made it look very Mortal Kombat. And then the movie itself, when you went to watch it, was not Mortal Kombat, and it was a terrible movie. So just throwing it out there that this can still be a good movie if it's not like, even if it doesn't look or feel like Uncharted from the trailers. In fact, if anything, this might be, and I think you mentioned this before too, but this might be a bigger hit or be more exciting if, like, they called it something else and it wasn't called Uncharted. Like, it was like National Treasure 3 or something like that. Like, people might be more excited for this, or like something else. Because again, it's trying to ape, Indiana Jones. So, I mean, they could have called it almost anything else and it probably would have been fine. But
not on the map.
Just gonna shake my head at you. All right, next news story, we got God of War 2018. We knew it was probably going to come to PC at some point, but we finally got confirmation that it is coming to PC, and it's sooner than you think. January 14th, it comes to PC. The pre-order page is already up on Steam. I think it's $53. I think it's what it is. So it's not a full price game, but it's not also super cheap either. But Matt, what do you think about this news of God of War coming to PC finally? In fact, also, fun fact about this, they announced a while ago that Uncharted was coming to PC, and that's not coming until, like, sometime in Q1. We don't have an exact date for this, which, by the way, if you watch the Uncharted movie trailer at the end, they have the splash screen with the PC release for Uncharted. But God of War just got announced, and it's coming sooner than Uncharted, which I thought was kind of crazy too. What do you think?
Yeah. I think this is awesome. I really, really don't understand the mentality of so many of these people online who get so worked up whenever there's a PlayStation game announced that it's coming to PC. Let more people play more great games. I don't understand. Like, it kills me seeing the videos of, like, I'm going to smash my console, or people, like, burning their disc case and stuff. Who cares, man? If you played it in the last 3 years, like, why are you upset that there's going to be a whole new audience of people that's going to get to experience this story, which is fantastic. And, like, I have no issue with this. If it opens up more accessibility options, if it opens up more ways for people to be able to play and enjoy these who maybe can't get a PS5 or who are waiting to get one, like, why not? This is dope. And I hope this becomes much more regular. I hope we see these on a tighter timeline. Like, again, what's pretty much going to be 4 years after the fact, like, there's no real reason to be upset anymore. Like, I would like to see these things come day and date. Just give people more options. It's not going to hurt the bottom line. So for me, I think this is awesome. To anybody who's complaining about it, figure yourself out, because I see no reason for it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm off base here, Ryan. What are you thinking?
No, you're not off base. Like, come on, man, guys. Like that. We obviously knew the angry comments were going to happen as soon as they announced this. But you know what? Who cares? Like, again, to your point, like the fact that more people now have access to it, I think it's a great thing. And I mean, Sony wasn't making any more money off this on PlayStation. They were either like they're practically giving it away at this point. They're basically like, here, pay us $10 at this point, and you know, you've got this game at this point. So yeah, obviously they're doing this because, I mean, it's a financial strategy for them. It makes the company more money, which helps to go fund maybe the next God of War game or more exclusive games. So if anything, you got to be thankful that they're doing this type of thing, because this helps fund other projects, or for them to maybe take more risks with games. So yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great move, and the fact that more people have access to this game, I think it's great. I think the people that are upset with it, the kind of the logic they have that they're coming from is the idea that, oh yeah, they were sold the bill of promises that any game from Sony first party would be exclusive to their box, and that is, you know, they're part of this cool club that no other kids are allowed in unless they buy, you know, a PlayStation ticket, which I think is dumb. Like I think it's very silly. But again, I'm also coming from someone who, you know, owns every console. So, you know, console exclusivity has never really been a thing that I've ever had to worry about. Plus, you know, especially with someone who plays a lot of Xbox, where all our games are on PC, it's just like, at this point, I just think it's silly. And if anything, I'm like, PlayStation should be thankful that this isn't happening, you know, or the people that are upset with that, it should be thankful that this isn't happening right at launch. Like, this is happening, you know, 3 or 4 years after the game came out. So
yeah, and especially because like it being now on PC, like it, you know, in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, like just opens up the accessibility of the game much more. People can mod it and make it much more accessible to people who maybe couldn't play it the way that it was intended to the first time around, and now maybe because it's on PC, you know, with the keyboard and mouse support, or possibly even other, you know, controller support, it just lets more people enjoy it. Who cares? Let people play.
Yeah. Plus, there are a bunch of new features coming as far as graphical options. Like, this games can take advantage of DLSS, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. You're going to be able to run this game if you've got a powerful enough PC at native 4K at like 120 frames per second, which is something, you know, the PlayStation 5 doesn't even do with this game. So yeah, I think you could do some awesome stuff with this. So yeah, I'm excited to see what people say about it. Of course, I don't really play on PC, so I mean, this isn't really news that's exciting for me, but I'm just glad to see more people are getting a chance to play this awesome game. Well, moving on to games that are maybe not as awesome. Well, one of these two games is. CD Projekt Red have announced that the PlayStation 5 versions of both Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher 3 have been delayed until Q1 and Q2 of 2022, respectively. So Cyberpunk is supposed to still come out in Q1, and then the PS5 version of Witcher 3 is coming out in Q2. Maybe, Matt, just maybe, we'll see this in February. Who knows? How awesome would that be? So what do you think about this news? I mean, the fact that we still don't have like this version of Cyberpunk at this point, what do you think?
I just don't care anymore, man. To be blunt, I just don't care anymore. Like, Cyberpunk was in such deep water and for so long, and like I think that the thing that really broke me on CD Projekt was how they handled, you know, last gen and the reviews. Like they were just so scummy about it that like I just don't care anymore. Like, it's going to take a lot for me to get stoked on what they're doing, especially because all this is PS5 versions of games that already exist and you can already play.
Yeah.
The Witcher, the fact that there's no, you know, Witcher 3 next gen version is kind of baffling given how long that game's been around.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk, it getting pushed, whatever, but with Witcher 3 is the much more kind of confusing, head scratching one for me, because why is it taking that long unless everybody's all hands on deck for Cyberpunk?
That's what I was going to say. Like, I think that it would have been out by now if we didn't have all those problems with Cyberpunk. That's what I would imagine.
So for me, I just don't care. I'm not looking forward to these. I'm not like, you know, anxiously holding my breath for a release date. Like, I've already played Cyberpunk. I've already played The Witcher 3. And there's so much new stuff to get excited about for a company that just has really, it's just incredible to see how they were like one of the industry darlings to now being one of the, you know, again, for me, I loved them before. Now I just really can't care. I don't know, whatever. If these come out and people are stoked about them, then, you know, good for you. But for me, I just don't care anymore. I don't know, Ryan, where are you at with this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic here. Like, I don't think I'm going to go back and play The Witcher again at this point, and to play this next gen version. The one of the two of these I'm probably going to actually check out is Cyberpunk, because it was a game I actually really liked when it ran properly, because I was playing it at the time on PlayStation 4 Pro and not having a great time with it, but I did really love the game and the story and exploring the city and stuff, but it was just too broken to really, enjoy to its fullest. So I know that there's a great game there. So I know by the time these next gen versions come out that this game will, probably be in a running state for me to maybe go back and play it again, because I never finished it. And it's a game I always wanted to finish, but the game just wouldn't let me. So it's one of those things where it'll get tacked onto my backlog, and whenever there's downtime next year, I'll get to it. But yeah, just like you, I'm not rushing out to play these games, but I am excited to see what they do with Cyberpunk, especially because, again, I know that there's a good game there. So I'm excited to maybe check it out again next year. But anyways, next up on the docket, speaking of February 2020, Matt, Elden Ring has been delayed a month, and it is now launching on February 25th on PlayStation 5. There will be a closed network test starting on November 12th. So if you want to play the game early, you can go sign up right now on the Elden Ring website for access. So if you just go to eldenring.com, select your platform, they'll give you a code, and on November 12th, you'll be able to play. And there's some playtime sessions on their website. So if you want to find out more, definitely go check that out there. Matt, more games in February. What do you think? What do you think about this?
Something has to give at this point, man. Something is going to have to slip. Like, whether it's Saints Row, whether it's Horizon, this time frame is just getting increasingly absurd. And like, Elden Ring is like one of the most anticipated and most hyped games out there. For me, I already know what's going to happen. I signed up for the network test just because, again, I'm curious to check it out. But I already know what's going to happen. I'm not going to be excited. Reviews are going to come out. Probably call this game incredible. I'll get excited by the game. About an hour into the game, I'll remind myself why I don't like From Software games, and then kind of beat my head at it for a couple weeks, and then forget about it until it comes around again. The difficulty for me and like the FromSoft experience, while I respect it and understand it, just personally isn't for me. Elden Ring does have me a little bit more curious than normal, just because of its open world promise and its kind of non-linearity sounds interesting. And depending on how the combat finally comes together, if it's a little faster, if it's a little bit more fluid, I'm just kind of curious to see how this game comes together. About the delay itself, I don't mind. Again, take your time, especially with everything that's going on. Take as long as you need. But for me, I don't know, man. This something has to give, something has to slip. And what do you think it's going to be, Ryan? If anything, what do you think gets delayed out of this February? Because this is getting just absurd, man.
I mean, it's literally every week for the last 4 weeks, Matt. We've talked about a new game that's announced for this time frame. So we're now up to 12 games on the Yumi Capri review spreadsheet for this time frame of notable games in February of next year. So you're right, something's got to slip. But I don't know, like Saints Row, for example, just put out a trailer this morning with gameplay. They also doubled down on the same date. So, I mean, because they're also coming out the same day as Elden Ring. So it's going to be interesting what's going to get delayed. I don't know what gets delayed, though, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if enough of the games care enough. Like Horizon, for example, maybe Sony feels like it's too big to really feel like it needs to get delayed, unless like there's problems with the game, for example. And likewise, they're not going to like Bandai Namco is probably not going to delay Elden Ring again, and Saints Row maybe, but I think we would have heard about it by now if they were going to go down that road. But you never know. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then just like stuff like Monarch that we talked about before, or the King of Fighters, or Atelier, like a lot of the smaller titles that are coming out around this game, they probably feel like, especially because a lot of those are in niche genres like fighting games or hardcore turn-based role-playing games. Like they're probably feeling like, oh, well, it doesn't matter if we launch alongside Elden Ring, we're different enough probably that there's probably not going to be too much issue. So I don't know. I don't think anything is going to slip unless, again, there's like a production reason for that. I don't think anyone's going to do the, we're going to just delay ourselves because, Elden Ring's here and Horizon's here. So we'll see, though. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
Otherwise, worst case scenario, we just review a whole bunch of games and it'll be fun. It'll be a fun couple weeks.
Very quickly, Ryan, before we move on from this, I can't remember. Where's your hype at on Elden Ring as a game itself?
It's like, I mean, I don't love From Software's games either. So, I mean, I actually prefer like older From Software games, like Otogi, for example, on the Xbox, the original Xbox, or stuff like Chrome Hounds or Armored Core, like some of their older titles, because they move at a much faster rate. But ever since they moved to Dark Souls, for example, like I always find like the game feels like you're running around in like a large suit of armor and it's just very clunky. It's slow to play.
Yeah.
At least all the Dark Souls games in particular feel like that to me. So that's why I don't love them, because I like difficult games. I mean, I love like fast action games though. Stuff like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden. Like those are the games that I love to play that are difficult, like that move really fast and are just like super fun to play. Whereas I just don't really have fun playing the Dark Souls games. I did have more fun with Sekiro. Like I really liked that game, and that was like the one From Software game that I like really got into. But you play a ninja in that game, like that's like much more up my alley than some of these other ones. And Elden Ring, I'm just hoping that the combat doesn't feel exactly like Dark Souls, because if it does, then I'm just not down for it. But that's one of the things that's going to be exciting about this network test. So I'm excited to actually try it out and maybe see if it grabs me a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. When
we will.
We don't have to wait too long, because again, next month we're going to be able to have a chance to play it. And then last news story that I wanted to touch on a little bit, during DC Fandome, we got new trailers for both Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We didn't get exact dates for either one of these games, but we do have confirmations. They're both coming out next year at some point. So I would imagine Gotham Knights comes out first, because I would imagine that one's a little bit farther along, because that was, again, supposed to come out this year and then actually got pushed back till next year. So I imagine Suicide Squad's kind of like their like fall/winter game, and then we see the Gotham Knights either next summer or who knows, maybe February 2022, Matt. Maybe we see Gotham Knights then. But did you get a chance to see these trailers? And if so, what'd you think?
I did, yeah. My hype is kind of higher for Suicide Squad than it is for Gotham Knights. I actually never played Arkham, the last one. Which one, the last one? Arkham Knight?
Yeah, Arkham Knight, yeah.
Yeah. I own it. I've just never actually gotten around to playing it. So I don't know. For me, Gotham Knights looks fine. I just think that the kind of co-op-esque nature of it, I'm kind of waiting to see how that comes together. Because like playing as Batgirl, super dope. Like I like the idea of it. I'm just kind of waiting to see how it actually comes together, because like I love the Court of Owls. I think they're fantastic villains, and I want to see more from it. Suicide Squad got me more excited just because of the tone of the trailer. The comedy was actually much more on point than I was expecting. The idea of kind of going up against an evil-esque version of the Justice League does sound cool. Like the promise of that game is just I'm more inclined towards it. I just really want to see gameplay at this point. Like story wise, that as a kind of a story trailer got me excited. And I'm very kind of curious to see what the game actually plays like, because I'm kind of curious to see Gotham Knights versus Suicide Squad as a whole next year, because they're both seemingly kind of going to be co-op-esque experiences, I would assume. So I just kind of feel it's a little funny for them to almost go up against each other over the course of a calendar year. But I don't know. I'm curious to see more. I really want to see more gameplay from the both of them before I kind of really get either very excited or, maybe not for me. But where are you at, Ryan? Where are you at for both of these games?
Yeah, I'm same as you. I'm excited about that. Again, I don't love superheroes, but I love Rocksteady's games. So, of course, I'm excited to see what they do next. And yeah, Suicide Squad tonally looks really good, and just like you, I want to see what that game's actually going to play like. But Gotham Knights in particular, I'm excited about it because I love RPGs, and having a Batman RPG sounds awesome. Yes, it's not turn-based, like it's an action RPG, but it seems like it's much more in the RPG direction than Suicide Squad is. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, you're right. Like as far as the co-op is concerned, because like, again, you can play it by yourself,
right.
But I'm curious to know how viable that's going to be, because you can technically play the Division 2 by yourself, but it sucks because it's very much balanced more for co-op versus single player. So I hope that they tweak it in such a way where it feels just fine to play it by yourself or with friends and kind of give you that option. But yeah, I'm excited for that game probably more than Suicide Squad, because we have seen the gameplay for it. We know what that game's going to look like. So I have a much firmer idea in my head as to how that game's going to play in a lot of ways. So either way, I'm excited to see both of them though, because again, we're getting both next year. So that sounds pretty awesome. So look out for that next year. All right, let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It is time for the carpool. Listeners and viewers at home, if you would like to have your question read on the carpool, there's a number of ways to do that. Number one, you can leave a question on our question post over on Twitter at Yumi Caprice. We tweet out a question post every single Wednesday afternoon, except for today where I forgot and I tweeted it this morning, but somehow we ended up with more questions than usual. So there you go. So also you can hit us up on Discord. The Yumi Capri Discord's free to join. The link is in the show notes, and you can actually just leave your question in the PlayStation Drive section and we'll answer it here. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave us a comment on the video itself that you're watching right now. And with your question, we'll answer it on next week's show, just like Dan at Dano12 did on Twitter. And he asked the question, how many hours is your ideal amount for just relaxing gaming time? So Matt, what's your ideal amount of time to just relax and play games for, if you had the ability to choose?
For me, I love for my relaxing game time, I just want to kind of, get comfy, become kind of like a potato on the couch and just kind of not move for a while, like I used to do much more often in the days of yore. For me, it's about 4 hours. I love like a good 4 hour chunk. I feel like that gives me enough time where I'm just like, okay, I know I only have 30 minutes. This is the only thing I can do. Like I can run around and do side quests. I can kind of continue on with whatever main story I'm doing. It just gives me, I feel like 4 hours is a good round solid number for me to kind of really veg out, experience a game, spend some time with it, and then and just not feel like complete crap after. So for me, I think a 4 hour chunk is good. What about you, Ryan? Where are you at with this?
I'm amazed we're both on the same page with this. Yeah, I also actually had 4 hours in mind because again, if you go too much under that, like if you only have like an hour or two, I always feel like you don't get a ton done, especially with the type of games that we play, Matt. Like for the most part, a lot of times we tend to play longer games, so that just tends to needing a little bit more time to play some games. But also you don't want to spend too much time there because I've had some long gameplay sessions of not moving, and that never feels good. So yeah, I would say my answer was actually between 3 and 4 hours. So we're actually pretty close on that answer.
Look at us, Ryan.
I know. Now I understand why we're such good friends. And then last question comes to us from Edward at That Retro Code. He asked the question, does Sony first party seem to be good at telling a great narrative, but the gameplay seems lackluster, or do they shine in gameplay and allow the stories become overblown cinematic guff? So maybe I think what he's asking is like which of these we would prefer, not necessarily what Sony currently does. The question was weird in kind of a weird way. So, yeah,
I don't know. I actually don't think Sony really struggles with either one of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's really just kind of dependent on the game. I know people have, more to say about Naughty Dog's gameplay because I know it's maybe not everybody's cup of tea. But for me, I've always kind of enjoyed the way that Naughty Dog puts their games together. And I just don't think that they really struggle on either one of them. Are they the, genre leaders for a lot of what they do with their gameplay? I don't think so, but I think a lot of what they do is really solid and really fun, and it's just a great time. And yeah, while their games do tend to be more cinematic, I think it largely works for a lot of the ones that they do put that kind of extra shine on. But if I had to kind of choose between these, I would always rather have a great story with okay gameplay personally. Like if I'm wrapped up in the story in a way that no matter where kind of the gameplay's at and I want to keep going with it, I'm going to do that at a much faster rate personally than if the gameplay is just okay. If the gameplay is fantastic and the stories are just kind of these massive, ridiculous things. So for me, I would always kind of I'm much more of a story first player. I do, obviously gameplay is very important, but I would much rather have them have, good, really good story with okay gameplay than the other way around. But what about you, Ryan? What do you think about this?
I'm actually kind of in the opposite camp where I'm always a gameplay first person, but I feel like a lot of that just has to do with the games I grew up with, the games I enjoy the most, where I really enjoy games with tight controls and really fun gameplay and that doesn't really frustrate you. Or if it does, because of how difficult it is, it frustrates you in the way that it doesn't make it feel like it's your fault. Like games like Mega Man, for example, like those Castlevania, like those are games I grew up with. So of course, I'm going to always be a gameplay first kind of person. In fact, especially, when I think about games in this way, if I want a really great story, I would actually at that point, would rather almost watch a movie at that point. Don't get me wrong. I love getting great stories in games, because I mean we've played a lot of them this year that have great stories, and I mean the perfect experience for me is when they kind of have a great story and great gameplay to go along with it. But if I had to choose one, that's one of the reasons why I like Devil May Cry or Ninja Gaiden. Like I love those games because those games put the gameplay first, and the stories are just silly and ridiculous, and you don't really care too much about them. But I mean they're kind of there. But I love the gameplay so much that it like overshadows those stories in a completely different way. So yeah, that's why like for me it doesn't stress me out if a game doesn't have an amazing story, because that's not why I'm playing it. Most of the time I'm playing it because I enjoy the gameplay. Even with RPGs, like even RPGs that are like really story heavy. I mean, I really like turn-based combat in games, and strategizing. So I love when RPGs do a great job with that, even if they don't have the greatest stories. Especially if you play like older RPGs, like old like NES RPGs, or even some of the earlier SNES or Genesis RPGs. Like they don't have amazing stories in those games if we play them now, but the gameplay systems in those games still really hold up well today. So yeah, I'm more of a gameplay focused guy. So if they went more in that direction, it wouldn't bother me too much. I mean, especially with a game like Returnal, for example, like coming out this year. Like yeah, there is a story in Returnal, but the gameplay in that game was like so much better than the story was in that game. So yeah. That's kind of where my head's at on that one. All right. So before we go, Matt plugs go.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at burnout_Matt, or if you want to see more of me and the stuff that we make over at Burnout Brighter, we're at youtube.com/burnoutbrighter, or the Burnout Brighter podcast on whatever podcast listening app that you like to use.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on Twitter at YouMeCaprice, on YouTube at youtube.com/YouMeCapri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Matt Sawinski, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 23 of the PlayStation Drive, and we out. The PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YouMeCapri, and I want to say thank you to each and every one of our patrons from the bottom of my heart from your support across all of our content. And let's start by thanking our Premium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown over at youtube.com/PM Entertainment. Our Platinum producers, Robbie Ballaby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and our Gold members, Argo, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Emily O'Kelly, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Benji Kong, Marcus O'Neill, RJ Kern, Dano, Skinny Matt, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, Fuya Fuji, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support.